Twitter. Science got an early Christmas present as a widely hyped climate paper was retracted. Turns out the climate apocalypse was a spreadsheet error. Of course, they'll keep trying because there's trillions at stake in the fairy tale.
In the climate fairy tale.
Climate fairy tale. What's going on?
Science got an early Christmas present as a key climate catastrophe study was retracted after being widely hyped for a year. Turns out it was fake. Which is not surprising if you've been following the 50-year carbon dioxide hoax. The study ran last year in Nature, which used to be one of the top scientific journals in the world. It claimed global warming or climate change would cost $38 trillion a year by 2049 and would shrink global output by 2/3 by the end of the century with a catastrophic 40% drop in crop yields. In other words, we would all be starving again. The paper made worldwide headlines. The standard blurb was, quote, bombshell report predicts catastrophe, accompanied by a random photo of houses burning, not a joke. It quickly became one of the most cited papers on Earth and is already baked into at least 168 other scientific papers.
Oh my God.
It was cited by the OECD, World Bank, central banks around the world to determine
Can you see the infiltration? So now how long before those other 168 studies are retracted?
Oh, they won't get retracted. I mean, they've done the damage they need to do. I was writing down like a script for a post because this is what Canada is relying upon, right? These headlines based on fake studies that they can then go spend more of our money in many different ways, many different reaction solution, kind of like problem reaction solution ways. And now, when did he say that study was from? A long time ago? Wasn't it 50? Was it a 50-year study? Oh, okay. But yeah, the damage has been done. This retraction really doesn't do anything because Carney and in Canada, we are still under this paradigm, under this net zero bullshit paradigm.
Monetary policy getting ready for the great collapse. Now, the crop crash alone should have laughed it out of the room since it's well known that carbon dioxide and heat raise crop yields. Commercial greenhouses, for example, pump in CO2 at 2 to 3 times atmospheric levels and are intentionally built in hot places like the Negev Desert. Alas, it was not left out of the room because climate doom porn pays the bills for an army of activists and universities. Still, the numbers were extreme enough to invite scrutiny, and it turns out the data was corrupted by a single data point from Uzbekistan, which was hot for a while when the Soviet Union collapsed, suggesting maybe climate models are not as sophisticated as one might think. Indeed, embarrassing data is par for the course in climate science. In the 1970s, scientists warned of a coming ice age. They predicted marine life extinction by 1980, and Life magazine predicted water rationing by 1974. Food rationing was supposed to come by 1980 with 100 million starved. Back then, it was the ice age doing the starving. The Smithsonian predicted 75% of species would go extinct by 1995. The Club of Rome said we'd run out of fossil fuels by 1992. In fact, the UN warned entire nations would be wiped off the map, sunk into the ocean, including Britain, which would sink by the year 2000. Humanity itself was supposed to be extinct by 2023. Yes, we are living on borrowed time. Why do they keep it up? Because that's where the money's at. Between 1993 and 2017 alone, federal funding for climate change came to $154 billion. It's since accelerated to close to $500 billion in total, which buys a lot of professors. Toss in trillions of green energy gigaws to double your electric bill, and there's plenty of money to pay academics to invent fairy tales. So as next brought to you by I Trust Capital, even if global warming is real, it's not worth.
I like it. We should get that guy on the show. That'd be fun.
On the show, I wonder if we could do that. Anyway, on that same note, I figured I'll just follow that up with this. Between 2021 and 2023, Antarctica gained over 100 billion tons of ice every year.
Oh.
Earth has become 5% greener since the early 2000s. In 2024, global CO2 emissions at all-time high, so record emissions, yet more ice and more greenery. But because the facts don't fit into the narrative, you hear crickets.
I like it.
97% of 33%. That's the stat the entire climate crisis narrative is being built on. Now, let's look at what's actually happening. Between 2021 and 2023, Antarctica gained over 100 billion tons of ice every year. NASA confirms Earth has become 5% greener since the early 2000s. That's like adding a second Amazon rainforest in leaf coverage. Meanwhile, in 2024, global CO2 emissions hit all-time highs. Nearly 38 billion tons released into the atmosphere. So, record emissions, yet more ice and more greenery. Now, here's a stat that they all lean on. 97% of scientists agree that humans are causing climate change. Here's what that actually means. It comes from a 2013 study that reviewed 11,944 peer-reviewed climate papers. Only 33% of those papers even took a position on whether humans are to blame. Of that one-third, 97% said yes, humans are contributing. So what they should be saying is 97% of one-third of the papers even took a position agreed, which means only about 32% of all papers actually supported the data and the idea.
Can you pause it for a sec, or is that possible? I think it's even a little bit deeper than that. I feel like there's another level to it.
Yeah, I think there is too, but this is good, like
Summary.
entry level, you know?
Nothing either way. That's like quoting Anchorman. 60% of the time, it works every time. That was Brian Fantana. Ron Burgundy's response was, that doesn't make sense. And he's exactly right. And yet that's a stat being used to justify billions in spending, sweeping policy changes, and global pressure to act now.
See, look, he's playing the movie without audio.
Okay, yeah. Good,
Now,
good.
we're being told human-made climate change is the crisis, but the more you look at the data, the less it adds up. Earth's climate has moved in cycles, long before humans and long after us. And if the ice were disappearing and the planet were browning, you'd never stop hearing about it. But because the facts don't fit the narrative, you hear crickets. It's not denial, it's common sense. And it's about time we start asking the right questions. What's your thought?
All right. Do you want me? Can I follow that up with a climate change one?
Yeah, it's just don't leave climate change because I still got some more stuff.
Oh, do you? Okay. Let's see. Where is this thing here? Oh no, there it is. So this is watch this and remember when they start blaming climate change. Signs from the Earth. This is from Stephen Burns. Signs from the Earth, Sun, and planets suggest something big is coming. Scientists are worried. I don't know why this disappeared from my my thing, but I'm gonna fast forward it a little bit.
I'm not sure about this guy.
Day from a heliocentric.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. He just seems like he's seen what that Ben Davidson was getting a following and was thought maybe he could do the same thing, just a little less fucking aggravated. And I mean, you know.
Okay, let's see what he says here for a bit.
Standpoint. We'll look at that. So in terms of the overall solar system, right now, today, the 13th of December, Neptune and Saturn and the Sun are perfectly aligned. And in fact, Mercury is on the other side of the Sun, participating in that alignment with a very, very close degree alignment to it. We also have a very big alignment coming up early January of 2026. So there's been some notable planetary alignments already. Remember that megaquake I mentioned, that magnitude 8.8? There was a big planetary alignment that occurred involving the Earth.
He talks about at the beginning all the increase in quakes. I kind of skipped through a lot of that, but he talks about how it's going nuts with the quakes.
Within about 2 weeks of that big megaquake. So there's a lot that's been happening. The second biggest ever and longest duration gamma ray burst hit Earth on July 1st. We had that megaquake on the 29th. So just in general, everything's been super, super active. And I don't think that's about to end. There are signs in the Earth, with the Sun, and with the planets, just overall with the cosmos, that something big could be coming. So that's what we're going to examine in today's video: the space weather factors, the planetary alignments, and the earthquake risk for Japan, because there's anomalous earthquake activity that's occurring right now that's suggestive of a megaquake. I've crunched the data. I'm going to show you that. Let us start with our Sun. Here we have our coronal hole on the Sun, and this is the first thing to know as it relates to these space weather factors. We have these structures called coronal holes, and these are areas in the outermost atmosphere of the Sun where there is a lot of high vibrational plasma. It's very high temperature, millions of degrees Kelvin. where there's a deficiency in that. So effectively, imagine like our upper atmosphere had a big gap in it. That is what a coronal hole is for the sun. It shows up dark on our 193 angstrom view here as a result of there being less plasma there, lower temperature, lower density. The magnetic field extends out from the sun out of these coronal holes deep into space. So whereas normally it kind of loops back in, it's a little bit more confined. It's a complicated picture in general. But with these coronal holes, you have these open magnetic field lines that extend out. And Earth at 1 astronomical unit is very close to the sun. So you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, all in that 1 AU range. Mars about 1.5 or so. Jupiter's at 5 AU. Saturn's at 10. Uranus is at 20. Neptune's at 30.
All right. Okay. I thought he was going into more detailed predictions of what the stuff was going to happen. But anyways, something to pay attention to. There's a lot of stuff going on in our cosmos. Besides our carbon dioxide greening.
So we go to this one here quick. Breaking, there's no detectable climate warming in Canada since 1945. This extensive correlation report by PhD physicist and data scientist Joseph M. Hickley published today proves that the claimed climate warming of Canada is false. And then here's the study on that. Published December 23rd, 2025, just 3 days ago. Artificial stepwise increases in homogenized surface air temperature data invalidate published climate warming claims for Canada. So you got that. You got, hey, did I play the Antarctic ice clip? I didn't do that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
What did it say?
It said there's like millions of tons of something like that of ice since 2021 or something. 2021.
Yeah, I think I just read it. I didn't say it, but anyway, it
Well, you
doesn't.
played it and said it, I think.
Then there's this one. Data are now conclusive. There's been no warming in Antarctica since 1979. This is shown by both surface and satellite-based observations. So here's that line there. There's a line there. So there's no warming in Antarctica either. Then there's this one here from Mario Naufel. UK Met Office caught using temperature data from stations that don't exist to support climate policies. Britain's Met Office is facing awkward questions after an investigator discovered over 80% of its temperature monitoring sites are classified as junk, with measurement uncertainties of 2 to 5 degrees Celsius. That's not a typo, 5 degrees Celsius of potential error. Only 19 pristine Class 1 sites remain capable of measuring actual ambient air temperature accurately. The rest located on airport runways, walled gardens, next to main roads, and inside solar farms. Places where concrete engines and infrastructure create artificial heat islands that have nothing to do with atmospheric temperature changes. The Met Office database also contains data from over 100 stations that don't exist. They're using estimated temperatures from unidentified neighboring stations and presenting it as real data. When journalist Ray Sanders started asking questions through Freedom of Information requests, the Met Office dismissed them as vexatious and not in the public interest.
We're in a war. It's unbelievable on all fronts.
After media inquiries, the Met Office quietly removed estimated data from 3 non-existent stations. Over 17 new sites opened since April 2024. Nearly 65% were immediately placed in the worst quality categories. UK Science Minister Lord Patrick Vallance is calling scrutiny of this misinformation that weakens trust in science. Perhaps what actually weakens trust in science is using temperature readings from imaginary thermometers next to jet engines to justify trillion-pound net zero policies that reshape the entire economy. The data might be fine for tomorrow's weather forecast, using it to revolutionize Britain's energy infrastructure that requires stations that actually exist.
See, the British can really say it how it is, you know, like that, despite all the problems they have, there seems to be a mechanism of pushback that we don't have in Canada. None of our yahoos will ever be able to say stuff like that. They can't do it. None of them. Even our rightist right wingers. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because I'm sure the PPC would say it, but they seem to be a complete psyop. But the conservatives won't. I don't think they'll say that kind of stuff. But in the U.S., they have a major temperature station problem too. Have you seen that guy that goes around and he finds them all? And he's like, see, there's a whole bunch of them aren't functional.
We just busted up. New study: human CO2 emissions are responsible for 1.57% of global T change since 1750, meaning 98.43% of climate forcing is natural.
Oh, interesting.
CO2 provides 0.0058% of surface energy. There's a negative correlation between CO2 and T over the last 425 million years.
I wonder what Judith Curry thinks of that.
Judith Curry?
Yeah, because she's a super skeptic on all that, but she thinks CO2 is still a problem.
Well, let's jump over to this. I'm running out of climate change stuff. If people are getting sick of it, but I do got this one here. Climate change scam from Illuminati bot on Twitter. Did you know that throughout history, real science has shown that atmospheric CO2? Here, this one's speaking about Curry. What's her name? Curry?
Judith. Yeah.
Did you know that throughout history, real science has shown that atmospheric CO2 rises lag behind temperature increases? It's not temperature rising following increases in CO2, which is currently at 0.04% as a minuscule trace gas. Here's some real science comprehensively debunking the climate change hoax. This is kind of long, but it is important. We can stop whenever you want.
The first ice core survey took place in Vostok in the Antarctic. What it found, as Al Gore correctly points out, was a clear correlation between carbon dioxide and temperature.
We're going back in time now, 650,000 years. Here's what the temperature has been on our Earth. Now, one thing that kind of jumps out at you is, did they ever fit together? Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The relationship is actually very complicated, but there is one relationship that is far more powerful than all the others, and it is this. When there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer.
Al Gore says the relationship between temperature and CO2 is complicated, but he doesn't say what those complications are. In fact, there was something very important in the ice core data that he failed to mention. Professor Ian Clark is a leading Arctic paleoclimatologist who looks back into the Earth's temperature record tens of millions of years.
When we look at climate on long scales, we're looking for geological material that actually records climate. If we're to take an ice sample, for example, we use isotopes to reconstruct temperature, but the atmosphere that's imprisoned in that ice, we liberate, and then we look at the CO2 content.
Professor Clark and others have indeed discovered, as Al Gore says, a link between carbon dioxide and temperature. But what Al Gore doesn't say is that the link is the wrong way round.
So here we're looking at the ice core record from Vostok. And in the red, we see temperature going up from early time to later time at a very key interval when we came out of a glaciation. And we see the temperature going up, and then we see the CO2 coming up. CO2 lags behind that increase. It's got an 800-year lag. So temperature is leading CO2 by 800 years.
There have now been several major ice core surveys. Every one of them shows the same thing. The temperature rises or falls, and then, after a few hundred years, carbon dioxide follows.
So obviously, carbon dioxide is not the cause of that warming. In fact, we can say that the warming produced the increase in carbon dioxide.
CO2 clearly cannot be causing temperature changes. It's a product of temperature. It's following temperature changes.
The ice core record goes to the very heart of the problem we have here. They said if the CO2 increases in the atmosphere as a greenhouse gas, then the temperature will go up. But the ice core record shows exactly the opposite.
Had enough.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And then I have that's it. I'm out of climate clips.